Hey guys, this is Jamie. So today I want to talk about specifically about age and transitioning. I feel like there's a lot of specifically trans guys which feel like, or trans masculine people, which sort of feel a bit trapped by their age. So sort of like transition starts and they feel like, they're missing out on some sort of teenage or youth years. And I do have to say that obviously nearly all of us who didn't transition early have a sort of regrets over the fact that it took us a while to understand who we were, or maybe we weren't in acceptable places, or we didn't have acceptable family, parents, siblings, etc. And the thing is, I feel like we've been focusing too much on sort of a twink death. And what I mean by that is that sometimes when people transition or trans dudes transition, they feel like, oh, I'm not twinky enough. And I do understand that it is sort of like a societal pressure, and you have a certain vision. How would you look like once you start T, or how will you look? And someone who had, I guess, a twinkish phase, yeah, sure, it's fun, but I'm more happy now being in my early 30s than when I had hair, or when I was still sort of just starting to transition, because I still feel like as we age, life can get easier, specifically after you start sort of not talking to people who are rude to you, and you gain more independence. So there is no way sort of I had to trade sort of what I have now for a sort of twinkish appearance, because now for me it feels like, yeah, I was just coming out, I was still hiding, I was also very deep in the closet about it with my family, who I don't talk to this day. And I did many things that I feel like I wouldn't have done if I hadn't accepting family, but that's what it is. But back to the topic, what I want to say is that there is never too late to transition, just as there isn't a right age to transition or something early or not. And I do understand that some people want to sort of stay skinny or like look twinkish, but at the same time, I feel like there's nothing wrong with acting our own age. And what I'm trying to say is that there is nothing wrong with the price, with the concept of aging. So I'm not trying to say like you need to focus on the fact that it will not look like a twink, but and that being a twink maybe might be the goal in someone's transition. But if it so happens that hair falls out, I don't know, that you don't have enough, you're not hairy enough, or maybe on the opposite, you're too hairy. There's nothing wrong. There is no wrong transition if it is right to the person. And again, I'm not trying to bash sort of people who want to be like Twinks, but I feel like we need to accept that sometimes transition might have other things in store for us. Like maybe you have a lot of bold men in your family and you'll end up being bold. And that's just the way it is. And there's nothing wrong with it. And I understand, like, even like with hair loss. Like, I remember I was really struggling with it when I just started, and then like the war in Ukraine happens, and I completely lost my hair. And I was like, well, it is what it is. I don't have the energy to sort of rub minoxidil into my head anymore. And I just gave up and I went bald. And I understand that a lot of guys can feel insecure about baldness, specifically. Also, cis guys are very insecure. And right now, we don't even have any sort of like many bold actors or bold celebrities as much as we used to back in the day, because everyone started doing hair transplant therapy, hair transplants, or I've even seen eyebrow transplants. But I do feel like before you go to certain surgeries, you need to ask yourself, like, do I really want this, or is this sort of the pressure of looking a certain way? Because at the end of the day, as long as it makes you happy, that's fine. But also, you need to sit down sort of and think with yourself, like, is this really what I want? Is this really me? Will it matter that much? And obviously, like, there are surgeries like we as trans people do. Like, most of us do top surgery, some of us do bottom surgery. There's also histo, and all of them sort of, you go in with the approach of most trans people are different. I guess let's put it that way, in their needs, and I feel like it should be the same with certain surgeries. And I feel like I'm talking a bit about my topic from last week, but what I want to say is that you need to accept the passage of time. There is nothing wrong with it, and I understand that it can be heavy. Like, maybe you have relatives who passed away young, and you're feeling like your clock is ticking. But you really need to understand there's nothing wrong if, like, you're a bear, or you're bigger, or you're bolder, and there is no wrong way to be a man either. So, for instance, if on the opposite you want to be a bear and you're like very skinny and twinkish, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's no sort of wrong way of aging either. I feel like society also pushes sort of people to act more rigid as they age, in their clothing, in their expression, in their attitudes, when in reality, it's fine to just be yourself. Obviously, there are situations like in the US or in the UK these days where there's a lot of transphobia, there's a lot of homophobia, and you need to act safer. But I'm really trying, but please understand that I'm talking this from my own perspective, where I can walk the streets and whatever the fuck I want, really. And I don't really have any issues. So I do come from a place of privilege, but at the same time, when I sit here on this channel and I sort of talk what is on my mind, it's because I went through similar things as a trans person. I guess I just want to give back in a way, because I also sort of lamented like my hair loss, or I lamented how things sort of, maybe I wanted it to be a bit different in my transition, but I don't think so. I think probably my hair was maybe the roughest, because I kind of stopped it because I was too busy focusing on the Ukrainian war. But all in all, it's not the end of the world if you don't become a twink overnight, or if it takes you longer to become a twink, or if you don't get to be a twink at all, because you still age, you're still transitioning, you're still doing what's right for you, and no one can take that away from you. And sure, like, if you feel that this surgery will make you feel better, then get some surgery or whatever. But at the same time, sort of know your limits, know what you actually want, is what I want to say. And also, this is coincidental, like with my previous video, but that's what I wanted to focus on. Sort of, you need to know what's right for you, and you need to think, is this really something I want? And think it over. And there's nothing wrong with like taking time to think about it and then like proceeding, or postponing, or etc. So yeah, that's pretty much what I want to talk about today, and that's pretty much it. So just sit down and think about it, really, before doing sort of not a drastic decision, but a certain decision. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to subscribe, feel free to like, feel free to leave some comments. Thank you very much.